Yeah, well, hi, everybody from Klagenfurt, the very south of Austria. My name is Christiane Holzinger. I'm a tax consultant, entrepreneur, and federal chairwoman of the Junge Chamber. And thank you for inviting me, female founders, to the Fireside Chat. At least I organized Fireside, a place for myself. And I'm looking forward to a great chat in the next 20 minutes with Thomas from Germany.
So, hello everybody, and I'm very sorry for not having such a cool fire, but I warm myself on the one that you have, Christiane.
Thanks for being here with us today. So I already had some great panels and breakout sessions today on the very first day of Lead Today, Shape Tomorrow. And as Nina mentioned, this is going to be the last session. Can policy fix the gender gap in tech? Question mark. So Thomas, I learned you are the Economic Affairs Minister's Commissioner for the Digital Industry and Startups in Germany. What's your position about, and what's your personal opinion on the gender gap topic?
Yes, so obviously I'm also responsible for space and aviation, and that the situation is even more complex. But to start maybe with a good example, if you look at Airbus as a really large enterprise, you can see that the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer, is Grazia Vittadini, is a woman. And she makes a great job from my point of view. And right now, since she is the CTO, the global CTO of Airbus, you see women everywhere in technical positions. And mostly, if you have technical dialogues, there are so many men. And I think diversity is key. And it's important for us to have a 360-degree perspective. And if they're only talking men, I think there's missing a lot. And that's the reason why we try to foster women in entrepreneurship and also in large enterprises, and we made several initiatives to foster that.
I mean, in preparation of tonight, I had a look on the figures in Austria, and we see more and more women, like having the high school degree, more and more women having their university degree. We see more and more female founders, general speaking, because as Junior Chamber, I have a member base of 120,000 entrepreneurs, and every year the percentage of female founders is growing. So we are very proud on that. Still, we have a huge gap in leadership positions, CEO. On the supervisory boards, we have only 20% of the supervisory board members in Austria are women. And what we see is the higher the leadership position and the management position, the greater the gap gets. And it's even worse in the startup community in Austria. So what we are discussing in the last year in terms of policy and also in the Chamber of Commerce is, do we need a quota? Do we need a quota for women in leadership position? What's your opinion on that? And do you have any solutions in Germany?
Okay, if we look at the large enterprises, we had a similar debate in Germany and a similar situation, I guess. So what we tried was a law for the larger companies when it came to the board members that they had to make an announcement how many women they have in their boards. But we believe that would figure out that the companies would engage more women in these kind of positions. But finally, it didn't work. And so in 2015, so in the meantime, it's 6 years ago, we set a quota of 30% for the supervisory boards. And right now, today, we can say it achieved its goals. So we have 35.2% of the positions that are now set by women. And I think this is a good development. And we made in the last year a further law, the Second Leadership Positions Act, so it is called. And the basic idea is in the large enterprises that if you have a board that consists out of a minimum of 3 members, one has to be appointed, or it has to be appointed at least one woman or even one man. So we are diversity from both sides in this law.
And who is controlling that, or do you have a time frame to look on? when do you have to enable these female policy in your company or female leadership policy?
So I'm not the one going to control that. So I'm sorry, I cannot explain the exact mechanism, but it's going to be enforced. That's obvious. And as you can see from the supervisory boards, it works. Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the latest thing on the top management, on the C-level, I think it depends on the question when people leave these boards, and then afterwards women are coming, but we see it right now that women are appointed everywhere in large enterprises, and that they are all looking for women in top positions, and so we can see that it obviously works.
You know, in Austria, we discussed this in the last couple of months a lot of times, because we see that also with the COVID situation, you know, like women seem to be in charge of everything, of the organizing their families, and then organizing homeschooling, and then organizing also their own businesses. And to me, a quota or a quorum was not the solution. But last week, I have been invited on Friday to a press conference where they asked 15 experts to speak how to open up the tourism branch in Austria. And from 15 experts, they invited one woman. And I didn't know that. They invited me to speak there. And then when I asked the organizers, yeah, excuse me, why am I the only female expert? I mean, it can't be like that. And they told me, well, actually, we didn't know anybody else to ask for. And the thing is that I learned that if you don't force people to think more, you know, about whom to invite, they didn't even think, you know, they called each other, and mostly they invited men because they didn't think of a woman that could actually speak at the convention. So that was pretty surprising for me. And maybe we should think about a solution in Austria to enforce leadership, and maybe even at press conferences, so we don't have like a one woman show with 15 experts on stage. Generally speaking, what we have been discussing is what can the government do to enforce female leadership and enforce women in leadership positions. One topic that we see is the daycare offers. That's something what women always ask when we do opinion polls. What is an obstacle that hinders you from leadership positions? In Austria, we have a lack of daycare offers, and that's should I enforce my career, or should I stay at home? And who is taking care of the child while I'm at work? What's your opinion on that? And do you have any solutions in Germany?
Yes, so as I'm the startup person in the government, so I'm focusing very much on the question, so why do we have so few female founders? To count that in numbers, we have in Germany only 15.7% of the startups, not enterprises, but startups that are founded, have a minimum one woman in their founders team, and that's not enough. And I think it's very important to engage more female founders. So this is a strategic goal of our ministry and of my work. And we made a huge social media project, and we made a lot of appointments with interesting persons, also with Lisa Marie, for instance. She gave me very, very good input on that too. And and we have a board from young entrepreneurs in our ministry. They also made a very interesting report. If you are interested in that, it's openly downloadable on the website of our ministry. And they have several points that we found out. So one point is role models. That's very important, especially when you look at the schools, because something happens in the school that for some reason the girls don't believe that they can do technical jobs, and that they don't believe they can found companies. There's something going wrong. And so we need to go inside there, and maybe with founder prizes where it's mandatory to have a minimum one girl in the founder team and things like this. We're developing strategy here. Another thing, as you mentioned, is the question of childcare. And we invested in Germany a lot in childcare over the last years, only from the federal government, 4.4 billion euros. We added 1 billion more, and I believe we have a pretty good landscape when it comes to childcare. But in the end, a lot of these offerings are not the right ones for somebody founding a company, because this is not a 9-to-5 job, and you need more extended support on that. And so this is something what we try to achieve, to make better offerings for founders and also for top executives on that point. And afterwards, it comes to all these financial questions, but maybe this is a different topic. There's also things to do.
What do you think from the investment point of view? Because we still have a lack in terms of funds and funding into female-led companies. Is that still a topic in Germany too?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we realized that we have a problem here. And I think the general topic on that is called similarity bias. And that's not only a question between male and female, or black or white or whatever. It's also a question of philosophy, because networks of people, they tend to give support to the newcomers who think in the same way as they are thinking. And for me, diversity is absolutely important. If you want to develop disruptive technology and disruptive ideas, you also need disruptive people that are different than the ones that are strong in the network right now. And so this was always my personal motivation, to open up the market for the challengers, for the outsiders, for the ones with different ideas. And so therefore, I think it's very important to open up that better for women. And what we are discussing inside the government right now is it possible maybe for the VCs that we have with public money, for instance, Coparion, the High-Tech Gründerfonds, we have this Exist program for starting business right out of university, to establish their all-female investment teams, so that they can invest from a different perspective, and then to find out how successful were the ones and how different is the outcome. And I believe that in all these networks, it's necessary to have successful also female investors, to push the female founders, and also to give them the feeling that they can do more, and that's possible for them to get bigger rounds. And also we have a debate about quota. Do we have enough female leaders in these government-driven VCs? And I think it's a fair question. And so this is where we are, and we want to make a strategy out of that. And I guess we will come out in the next months with that.
That is very interesting, because we're discussing right now, one of the topics of the junior chamber is a tax allowance, because we want to increase, of course, liquidity and generally enforce people to invest in Austrian companies, not only startups, but generally. So if you invest, so to say, 100,000 euros, you have a tax allowance. And what we have been discussing with that is if there could be, a greater tax allowance if you invest in female-led companies. Do you think that could be also a way to influence investments in female-led companies?
Yes, all good ideas are welcome, and I believe it's fair also to say we make something like an MVP, a minimum viable product, and we test out things. And once we realize they don't work well, we change them back. There's only one thing what I'm concerned about when you have too much debates about quotas, because we have the problem in the end, we have too few founders at all, not only female founders. We have too few founders at all. And I want to enable every single person that wants to build a business and has different ideas. So, and I think what not shall happen is that in the end, somebody is going kicked out and nobody is founded by that. But I think there is enough space. We're just starting this year the new future fund with a 30 billion investment scheme. And so I think there is enough money left to make specific programs for female only, to give them special support.
Well, surprisingly, in Austria, we had 2020, in the year of crisis, we had a record on the numbers of founders. So, and that kept going on. I have been working with founders in the last 10 years, and it's interesting to me that people actually maybe had the time to think what they want to do. And even the female founders grew instantly last year, when people actually had the time to stay at home and find out what they really wanted to do in life. So that was very interesting for Austria.
Yeah, absolutely. Are different motivations to found your own company. And I believe times of crisis are always times where people maybe lose their job and say, so my new start is building an own business. Or otherwise they see that their companies are getting smaller and they believe, so is this a point when I can make my career, and maybe founding my own business is a better opportunity for me to make a career over the next decade. And so these are always reasons. What we see is that, especially when you look at startups and the tech business, that we have so much funding than never before. Look at all the development with these specs and whatever. There is so much money out there in the market, but we have to bring it to the right channels. I think that's important.
And one last question. I mean, what we have been thinking always in the Junior Chamber is, we are very network driven, learning from each other. Female Founders actually is a great network for female entrepreneurs. Obviously, what's happening in Germany in terms of network and providing platforms to actually give people the possibility to mingle?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, we have the Wirtschaftsjunioren, who are doing a similar job than you're doing in Austria, and I think they are doing it very well. On the other side, we are building networks from the ministry, the DE Hub initiative, we call that. We try to make hotspots for specific technologies, for InsurTech, for mobility, for IoT, wherever, all over Germany. We have, I believe it's 12, a number is 12 of these DE Hubs. And what we see also in the larger startup communities, for instance, in Berlin, in Munich, but also in the Rhineland, in Düsseldorf, that founders connect themselves, and that there are a lot of events where they meet each other. And so this is very relevant for the startup scene.
And maybe one last question in terms of policy and politics. What I've learned in Austria, and at least in my region, that's very true. We have too little women in politics, and therefore so many things, policies that are the decision-making process is always not female-led, and therefore no one thinks about solutions for women. I mean, you have at least a female chancellor. Is that why politics are being made differently than with our male chancellor? What's your opinion on that?
I cannot remember times where we had a male chancellor. Right now, I the 15th year, in the end, but also the whole cabinet is a quota of 50% almost. I think only a single one is missing, but this is the reason because of our coalition partner. And nevertheless, so this was important, and I think it's good to have a diverse team there.
Great. Now, it was really great chatting with you, and I think we can take a lot from your ideas to Austria, and I already have my agenda. And thanks to Female Founders, I have been very inspired today. Thanks for having me, Nina and Lisa. I enjoyed the first day of your Lead Today, Shape Tomorrow event very much.